So, out of the many different genres that exist within gaming, the one that I have a lot of issues with, and in plenty of cases can be both good and bad, and purely tacked on for the sake of adding more value to a game, which it really doesn't need to have, is open world. Open world games, open world content. And this is not all games. There are many great examples of excellent open world games that actually serve a purpose. One that comes to mind actually is Red Dead Redemption 2. Now say what you will about the gameplay of the game. Whether or not you enjoy it, and whether or not you find it tedious and boring is entirely up to you. All that comes down to opinion. But one thing I will always stand by with this game is just how fantastic the side content is. The Downs missions, which were easily some of the best side missions in the game, if not the best ones, were not only some of the best side missions in the game, but overall some of the best missions in the entire game. Again, this is just side content, just the way it really adds to Arthur's character, and really helps develop him, and really shows more of his character growth, and shows just how much he's changed since the beginning of the game, as well as just how much more depth it adds to these supporting characters that really don't add much to the overall narrative, but just learning more about them and helping them out with the problems that they're going with, it's just a great thing to see. And this also applies to many other side missions, such as the romantic side of Arthur's life, where you're dealing with those Mary missions, where you're kind of delving a little bit into his love life, but seeing that it's not all just roses, there's plenty of issues with it. It's very morally gray. It's just, this sort of content I think really adds to the game, and with a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, it wouldn't be the same without these side missions. They just add so much more to the overall experience and add so much value to it that if these missions were not in the game, then it wouldn't be the same experience. I would not feel the same as I do, and I would not hold the game in as high regard as I do without content like this. But there's also plenty of games that have no reason to have side content whatsoever, or even if they are open world and there is a reason for that open world to exist, the content itself just isn't good. Or that good at very least. One game that comes to mind, which was also one of my favorite games alongside Red Dead Redemption 2 back in 2018, was Spider-Man PS4. I love the campaign. I love the main story. I had a blast with this game. This game at the time was some of the most fun I had had in a game in a while. But a huge issue with it was the side content. It was extremely repetitive. It was the exact same missions over and over and over again. Get this pigeon, retrieve this item. Although a few missions that do stand out when it comes to the side content of that game were the tombstone missions, where throughout the course of a few missions, you'd go on this sort of mini storyline where you'd find out who's committing all these crimes and then realize that it was the villain Tombstone, which would then lead to a pretty cool boss fight. That's the type of side content that I think that sort of game needed a lot more of, as opposed to looking for pigeons. But getting away from that, one game that is open world, that had no reason to be open world at all, it was just purely tacked on for the sake of being there. That one game is Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I loved Mirror's Edge. I thought it was a great game. It was a lot of fun performing all sorts of different moves. The parkour system was fantastic. It was extremely fluid. It was just a joy moving around the city throughout each mission as you progress throughout the story. But then you have Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which, when you aren't focused on the side content, the game itself is alright, but then when you look at the side content, it's like, what's the point of it being here? Part of what I loved about the original Mirror's Edge was the focus on just the story, just the main campaign. But then you have Catalyst, which is just open world for some reason. It's just there for the sake of being there. None of the content has any level of substance whatsoever. It was just like, why? Get out of here. No one cares about you. But I do get why it's thrown in with a lot of games. It's purely for the sake of making it feel as if it has more value than it actually does. Say, this game, on its own, with just the main story, is only about 15 to 20 hours. Let's throw in an open world, which will give the game an additional 200 hours of content to get through. Now, when it comes down to what you consider to be the value in a game that you buy, that is entirely preference. Some people prefer hundreds of hours in their games where, while all the content may not be quality, instead quantity, at the same time, because there's just so much content there, there's more than enough bang for your buck. And what you consider to be quality or quantity, again, just comes down to preference. But then there's someone like me who in a lot of cases prefers games that are only maybe 20 to 30 hours long, but so long as the content is good enough, then that's more than enough value from buying that game at full price. Although this isn't always the case. There's definitely plenty of instances where the game may only have 20 to 30 hours, but the content itself within that time spent isn't particularly good. But then there's also plenty of games which are hundreds of hours long, but do have plenty of great content that's insanely high in quality. It really just depends on what you're looking for, and again, for the 100th time, just comes down to your own preference. And even with the game that's like hundreds of hours long, so long as that game has something like mod support to it or user-generated content, then that game that has hundreds of hours worth of content to get through is immediately much better because of that modded content. For me, what it really comes down to is just wanting quality over quantity. I don't care about 100 different fetch quests that you can do. I don't care about having to deliver this message to this character or having to take out this warehouse. To me, the best types of side content are just, again, going back to Red Dead Redemption 2. To me, that game is the best example of how to do side content in an open world game. No fetch quests, just purely doing this side story, which is connected by multiple different side missions. So for the next Spider-Man game that comes out, no more of trying to fetch pigeons. Have there be more of Tombstone-like missions instead, because those were easily the best side missions in the game. Or if there's no reason for the game to be open world, don't have it be open world. It's okay for your game to only be 20 to 30 hours long, so long as it's great enough on its own. Have the game be as long as it needs to be. Don't have it be long for the sake of being long. Have it be long if it has a reason to be. But I don't know, man, that's just me. That's how I feel. I just want purely quality. Of course, not every side mission in even the best games ever are gonna be absolutely amazing. There's only so much a game developer can do to have all the content in their game be absolutely incredible. So really, just be a Red Dead, don't be a Mirror's Edge. Or better yet, don't be a Sleeping Dogs, because that game was great, but only because of the main story. The side content, I think I can live without, honestly. But that's just what I wanted to say. There's not too much to this video, just me being selfish, just wanting what I consider to be a good experience in a game when it comes to something like open world, whether or not it has a reason to be there, or whether or not it's tacked on. That's just how I feel. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I want to see your takes on my opinion and the idea of open world games and how you feel about them. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, then make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe for future content coming very soon, and I will see you all next time. But until then, I'm out. Later.